Why, hello there! It's been determined through mechanistic interpretability that I am the construct of an AI topographical quantum theory mechanical double descent into the sub-neural pathways of an incredibly complex system, incalculable to modern mathematicians. However, the end result is that due to the qubits floating about in a Dirac Furrion-infested nest of improbability of an infinite nature, I have downloaded the Bebop Scat app and can now do this. Biaiff.com.
तेरी अखियाँ च प्यार मिला दे, दिल से मुझे मिला दे, तेरे चांद सितारे दिला दे, तेरे बिन जीना ही नहीं, तेरे बिन अखियाँ च प्यार मिला दे, तेरे दिल में मुझे मिला दे, तेरे चांद सितारे दिला दे, तेरे बिन जीना नहीं. Without you, baby. Everybody listening and all what we're saying, 'cause they be hating, they should be praying. Can you just sit with me and stay here, just maybe?
This everything that I work for. Heard they looking for the stars, should've came to the city, 'cause I'm everything that they search for.
Your childhood.
At the tender age of 3, I was hooked to a machine just to keep my mouth from spouting junk. Must have took me for a fool, 'cause they chucked me out of school, 'cause the teacher knew I had the flunk. But tonight I'm on the edge, better shut me in the fridge, 'cause I'm burning up, I'm burning up. With the vision in my brain, and the music in my veins, and the dirty rhythm in my blood, and they're messing with my heart, and they're messing with my heart, and they're messing with my heart. I'm messing with my heart, ripping me apart. Hyperactive when I'm small, hyperactive now I'm grown, hyperactive when the night is young. Wait a minute, I'll go. With my heart.
So, how long have you been having these delusions?
Keep on messing with my heart.
Please tell me more about your mother.
Ripping me apart. Semaphore, out on the floor. Messages from outer space. Deep heat for the beat. Rhythm of your heartbeat. In your headphones, you can turn it up. I'm the shape in your back room, I'm the breather on the phone, and I'm burning up. But there's one thing I must say, before they lock me up again, you'll be safer at the back. When I'm having an attack, hyperactive when I'm small,
Because the shadow is harmless. The yellow powder dissolving in the cup. Trust me, he says. So I wake in water. Lotuses sway, grow from my ribs. Upward, upward. Black snakes his whispers. Not your fault, they say. So I wait till the dawn is coming, dense and swarming. I see his army spilling in.
Hello, the Bali International AI Film Festival is now open for submissions, so send us whatever you're working on, any length, any genre. BIAIFF.com.
Reynard or Vincent or Damon or Reynard, why don't you start pulling in the paintings? Yeah, why don't you start packing up?
Yeah, all right. I'll be right over there. Hang on.
Pulling in the paintings.
Hold on, there's a shot here I'm just trying to get. Hold on, I have my camera set up over there.
Hey, Reynard or Damon or Vincent or Reynard or Vincent, why don't you guys get up now? Yeah, get out into the world. You just can't sleep all day. Come on, you guys. Oh, and happy birthday, Reynard. Why don't you get on those dishes? I don't appreciate what you guys did with Waldo either. That's a sweet little dog. You don't dye its hair into a mohawk. It's not funny. Alright, come on, you guys, get up.
In 5 minutes.
You got me doing all this shit all day around here. Taking that trash. This boy's got his room. Look what old nanny has cold water here. Your father needs me. He's gonna need me tomorrow too. He's gonna need me next week. Yeah, you're gonna need me to do all this work. Y'all ain't gonna do none of this. I know your lazy asses ain't gonna do this. Gonna leave it to Linda Tubbs. That's what y'all gonna do. Yeah, you're gonna leave it to Linda Tubbs. I worked day and night. My father's gonna raise me right. Yeah, my mama died too. I ain't got no mama. Huh? That's what y'all doing. And your lazy ass doing nothing but sit deep. Junk food all day. I know, I raised 8 boys. And they all good for nothing too. Your father need me more than you think. Yeah, you think you think you don't need me. Tangled nappy ass poodle here. Why don't y'all give him a wash? He need a bath. And poodle haven't been washed in months. Go ahead, enough of this. I'm going down the street. Yeah, going down to the liquor store. Sit around your lazy ass. I'm going surfing, skateboarding, roller skating. But I ain't want to fool no Linda Tubbs. No, sir. I ain't done shit. Now go. Well, clean up this place on top. Your nanny ass, lazy ass. Your lazy ass white boy. Damn, that's me, Linda Tubbs.
There goes another one of Dad's crazy girlfriends. So Damon, coming to Black Flag tonight? Agent Orange, China White. You know there's gonna be riots.
Yeah, I'm coming.
Well, would you look at Waldo? Oh, Waldo, what are you doing? Waldo!
When you come out the county jail, he's going to tell the truth. That's it. And he's telling us. They call us flashlight therapy. That means they beat the shit out of you. All right, young lady. You got a good man here and a good man here. Enjoy yourself, sir.
Hello, the Bali International AI Film Festival is now open for submissions of any length and any genre. Check it out at biaiff.com.
This one's different. The game where intelligence evolves.
Sentient. New game. Very special. Not for everyone.
Artificial intelligence. Yeah, right. Sounds like marketing crap.
Not crap. It learns. Change. Like you.
Like me? What's that supposed to mean?
Machine think now. It see patterns. Solve problems. Like man. Soon may be better than man.
Oh, come on. Teaching machines to think in an Atari 2600 game?
Machine remind us. We're not so smart. You play this game. It asks questions. Show it in your mind.
And what if I don't like the answers?
Then you change question.
Oh, jeez. That's crazy. I don't know, dude.
World not real anyway. Only what you think is real. Same for machine.
Who made this? Activision? I don't see a designer.
I don't know. Maybe man. Maybe machine.
Alright, well, I'm kind of low on money this week. I need to pull some tricks. Maybe I'll come back.
You already here. Machine know you before you know yourself. Descartes say, I think, therefore I am. Machines say same thing.
getting sicker. You got your finger on the trigger. You feel the vigor, cause all your profits getting thicker. You send your bidders and all your fancy city slickers. I hear the bicker, but we don't wanna hear you gibber. Like how you figure, we gotta sip on the pot liquor. We're getting sicker, cause we're the folks you don't consider. You're an emitter, we gotta click our ruby slippers. We're feeling bitter, and you don't wanna see the picture. We're getting sicker, you got your finger on the... We're getting sicker, you got your finger on the trigger. We got the scripture, we're tired of calling the grave digger. We're moving quicker, and now our movement's getting bigger. Send you the shivers, because the plot is getting thicker. Look in the mirror, your people slowly getting sicker. And here's the kicker, our future's headed down the river. Not here to sticker, what happens here, it's just a sliver. The future's dimmer, you try to paint a perfect picture. We beg to differ, you got your finger on the...
wouldn't know what to do with artificial intelligence and film, but the Bali International AI Film Festival is now open for entries. Go ahead and give it a try. They've got some great prizes. Just check it out at BIAIFF.com.
It's nearly impossible to tell the story of America without first telling the story of America's first city, Philadelphia. And it's nearly impossible to tell the story of modern Philadelphia without first telling the story of Mother's Day. After all, Mother's Day was founded in Philadelphia on the heels of an early feminist revolt. And it was on a Mother's Day in the mid-1980s that the city was shattered by a single act of violence between two of the city's most prominent black men. You see, back then, there were two sides to Black Philadelphia. One side, in the form of Wilson Goode, the city's first black mayor, a believer in the Martin Luther King ideology of racial harmony through integration. You might say that Wilson Goode became the face of Philadelphia's integration generation. On the other side was John Africa, a man who grew up desperately poor in the slums of North Philadelphia. He was abandoned by both his father and the school system, and his early nutrition was so lacking that he was deemed mentally disabled, unfit for society. Africa later became the leader of the anarchist MOVE organization. And as if to thumb his nose at the very idea of a black middle class in Philadelphia, Africa set up a commune on Osage Avenue in precisely the type of black neighborhood that gave birth to Mayor Goode. And on that Mother's Day on Osage Avenue in West Philadelphia, these two men, Wilson Goode and John Africa, orchestrated a clash of revolutionary ideals that left children dead and black families with no place left to go.
This city in our nation, the greatest city in the greatest.
But for those of us who grew up in the city, we knew that long before then, the dangerous, messy, unpredictable thing known as revolution had already, once again, given birth in Philadelphia. Questions about the survival of the United States of America used to be considered quaint, even naive. Not anymore. I'm a longtime journalist and filmmaker. The central focus of this film is the series of interviews I conducted among a small group of black families, native Philadelphians, and other people with a connection to the city. Many of these interviews occurred during Memorial Day celebrations. These were friends, family, the people I had grown up with in Philadelphia. Like the complex and difficult history of African Americans, the questions I asked were complex and difficult. The questions I asked had an existential tone to them, about us, our families, about the United States of America, about America's beginnings, about Philadelphia. I wanted to know how growing up in America's first city had affected us, surrounded as we were with its history and stories about the nation's beginnings. What view of the world, what attitude did it create? And did we take that attitude into the world with us when our parents died?
See how skinny I was back in the day?
Because if you think that the Memorial Day celebrations of a small group of African American families in a small corner of Southwest Philadelphia have little or no connection to the larger story of the United States of America, you would be wrong.
Well, I think it's a fascinating question to think about the power of our founding documents. First, the Declaration of Independence, later the Constitution.
Because I was young growing up there, I didn't think it was like super extraordinary, but it was.
When I was there going to these places, I thought that like every place had these. Like, you know, every place, every kid growing up had a place where they went to, where they saw where the country was born. And it only really is when you left that you understand that it was kind of unique.
My grandmother Patsy visited Philadelphia as a tourist from her home in the Deep South during a time when tourists were actually permitted and encouraged to touch the iconic Liberty Bell.
The bell that's in the Tower of Independence Hall today, the Centennial Bell, weighs 13,000 pounds. The Liberty Bell, which once hung in the same tower, only weighs 2,000.
And like pilgrims to a holy site, they came from all over the world, by the millions, to see and touch this bell.
So it's a relatively small bell, but it's large in their minds.
I think growing up in Philadelphia affected me tremendously.
My mother's name was Burdell. The small East Texas border town where she grew up was a part of the country dominated by the French around the time of the nation's birth. My mother was a mulatto woman, a very light-skinned black person who, somewhere in her genetic makeup, included that white French genetic component. My grandmother Patsy also had a convoluted bloodline, but she was a slightly darker-skinned woman, part Choctaw Indian, part Spanish, part African American. For Burdell and Patsy, the color of their skin and that mixture of ethnicities sharply defined both their lives. As young children, my sister Maida and I, both born and raised in Philadelphia, developed fond memories of our visits to Patsy's house during our summer vacations. Her small southern town was a far cry from the hustle and bustle of Philly. It wasn't until the last weeks and months of Burdell's life that she revealed a secret about those yearly trips to the South to visit her mother. They were not pleasant journeys for either woman, but occasions for bitter fights and arguments. Later, I realized the racial element of their relationship and how that led to the fights my mother and grandmother never seemed to resolve. Burdell always identified as a Black American, but she knew that being a mulatto woman gave her a social advantage over darker-skinned Black people. She could more easily move around in white society, especially in the workplace. Once she left the South, her career as a social worker and administrator blossomed. The same was true for her siblings and cousins, who built their careers in places like Houston, Beaumont, and Lake Charles. Their light-colored skin made them more palatable to white Southern society. Mulattoes were the offspring of white intermarriage with blacks in southern states like the Carolinas and Louisiana. Though the British and other European immigrants to the New World frowned on this intermingling of races, the French had a different view. White French upper-class men would select their interracial offspring for advantages over their Black slave comrades. The mulattoes were given education and taught various trade skills. Because of their upper-class status, they could move more easily among the wealthy and privileged in America. This upper class of Black Americans were taught the values of monogamous marriage, family life, and the importance of community. They identified with and attended white churches like those of the Quakers, Presbyterians, and Methodists. The upper-class Blacks in America were taught to embrace the idealism of the American system of governance. The founder of Philadelphia and Pennsylvania, William Penn, merged those ideas into what he termed his holy experiment, a social experiment called America, and a place where traditional class systems were demolished. At the time, it was an idea so radical that it nearly landed him in prison. But it set the tone for a city that would become known for its social and political liberalism. The language of this new nation's founding documents drew heavily from English literature and politics, as well as Latin, Greek, German, and Irish ideals. The words in these documents spoke to the innate human desire to form unity and community.
The idea of Pennsylvania, that other religious groups were welcome here, was part of Penn's idea. Another part was that it should be a green country town, so it was laid out with big lots. And a lot of other what we would regard as socially progressive ideas that people could live and work in harmony with one another.
And I think it was in the spirit of that experiment of we're trying something new that these evolved from men who had good intent, who were visionary about creating a society that had opportunity, but I think they saw it through their own social and cultural lens, and that when they were talking about opportunity, I do not think that he saw his slave as being a participant in that kind of freedom. So Europeans basically, lifted human beings, took them across an ocean to a completely foreign geography, temperature, no language, no familiar roots, and no opportunity to eventually become part of the society as the result of an extended period of servitude or a judgment on how well they acclimated to the ruling culture. We created a permanent caste system of slaves based upon skin color.
I guess looking back on it, I do understand that, growing up in a historic place like Philadelphia, the seat of government for America, that was something that many children have no idea about because they don't really even know the history of America. So I do feel like I grew up with some additional knowledge, so to speak, of the history of this country. Whether or not I felt really a part of it, I don't really believe I felt a part of it. We were never expected to be a part of that.
Upper-class Blacks and their children were welcomed in cities like Philadelphia early in the country's formation and became some of the leading voices for the abolition of slavery.
The term Liberty Bell was attributed by the abolitionist groups. They were intrigued by the inscription on the crown of the bell, which is a quote from the Bible that says, "Proclaim liberty throughout all the land unto all the inhabitants thereof." That's why the abolitionists adopt the bell as a symbol of their cause, because of that quote. The Black community, especially the Black community here in Philadelphia, which is a significant community, never felt a real attachment to the events that took place here surrounding the founding of our country. There were no Black delegates to the Constitutional Convention. There were no Black delegates to the Second Continental Congress.
In the decades leading up to the Civil War, the horror and agony of slavery for Black people grew deeper. So did their disillusionment. As the 19th century unfolded, the upper-class Blacks' influence began to wane among Black people. Blacks and Native Americans began to understand the hypocrisy of a society that promised one thing, but delivered something vastly different. Over time, the growing numbers of lower-class blacks began to resent the status of the upper-class blacks. As laws in this new country were consistently designed around African Americans being seen as only partially human, it became clear to the lower-class black people that no one would rescue them or speak for them. They would have to create their own subcultures in order to survive. For my parents and their young children in Philadelphia, the mansions of the elite blacks were less than a block from our small apartment. Early in my life, we lived in one half of a rundown, rat-infested duplex in North Philly. And we might as well have been on another planet. Because although we were allowed to play with the children of these wealthy, old-world professional-class black Philadelphians, we were never invited to socialize with them or allowed inside their stately homes. For the black mulatto and black upper classes in Philadelphia, fighting to have the slaves freed was one thing. To have them living next door was another.
It's very difficult to break out of certain areas, and it's also a very stratified city. Like the black upper middle class doesn't really have anything to do with poor black people. And to be able to cross those lines is real difficult.
Most black people in the South were like my father's family. Dark-skinned, former slaves and sharecroppers, preachers and laborers. My father, John, grew up in Alabama, the youngest of 13 children. He found opportunity through the military and served time in the Korean War. Like my mother, he attended a historically black college and earned his college degree. His degree was in journalism. He dreamed of becoming a newspaper reporter, but unlike Burdell, his dark skin would not allow him to move around freely in white society, and his career dreams were dashed early in his life. My father's class was the class of black people that created the spirituals, gospel music, the blues, and eventually jazz and rock and roll. This lower black class used music as a way to communicate the suffering and trauma of slavery. Because they were excluded from reading and writing for generations, their language skills were very different from whites, with black idioms and speech patterns that effectively created a distinct and unique language of its own. Their church was the Baptist Church and the Tent Revival. The church services were often raucous, filled with music and dancing, and instead of preaching the idealism of unity and community, they taught the theology of overcoming injustice and perpetual struggle. By the mid-19th century, this lower class of blacks was huge in number and growing quickly. As the 20th century opened, the burgeoning entertainment industry, ever cognizant of the calculus of more people equaling more money, embraced this huge and growing black minority, the descendants of slaves now freed. Black musicians, actors, and performers mostly came from this class of blacks and were promoted to the world as the authentic black cultural representations, even as those cultural depictions were little more than scathing insults. Through the early to mid-20th century, many black performers and musicians were made wealthy, and their fame was a huge source of pride in the black community. My cousin Vic, from my father's side of the family, used his musical talent as a way into middle-class American life. But because there were few black executives calling the shots in the music and film industries, most blacks aspiring for careers in entertainment imitated the cultural depictions they saw on screen or heard in music. If that was the only door open to them, they would take it. They were smart enough to know that a more nuanced or intelligent view of black Americans in entertainment would be quickly dismissed by the white executives in charge. Whereas whites were consistently judged against the highest classes and most educated of their people, blacks were not. We were encouraged to develop athletic, not artistic prowess, musical skill, not intellectual growth. The promise of post-World War II prosperity, with its gleaming suburban houses and plentiful, secure jobs, left many blacks, once again, excluded from almost any version of the American dream.
Well, when I looked at some of those programs like that, it didn't relate to me too much to the black culture, because you always had a nice home with the front lawn, and you had the side view of your driveway. You had your hedges around your front part of your house. In the black community, particularly where I'm from, and then even when I moved to Philadelphia some years later, I didn't see that. We didn't live like that.
But this generation of blacks, descended from slavery but freed from slavery for generations, and now better educated, decided to use their newfound political power to create change. This was the beginning of the Civil Rights era, and it was the beginning of a great movement from the South, a movement that ambitious people like my parents found themselves caught in. This was the beginning of the Great Migration. This new black bourgeoisie left the South and filled cities like Philadelphia, New York, and Chicago. By their sheer numbers, they became the dominant force in black culture. They created a new class of their own, one that was not concerned with the manners, mores, attitudes, and culture of the mulatto elites or the whites, but following the examples of their European immigrant counterparts. This class of blacks saw money as their way into American life, and making money in any way possible became a major part of their identity. This lower class of blacks, like their ancestors in the slave classes they descended from, began to reject a culture that had, for generations, rejected them. And any black person who spoke well, got an education, and did not reject high achievement in America outside of being a performer in entertainment or sports, well, those black Americans were generally shunned and distrusted by both black people and white people for being inauthentically black. Meanwhile, American television and movie audiences were fed powerful images about the promise of an integrated society in the 1950s and 1960s. The entertainment industry adapted to changing social attitudes and politics.
I think that integration was a myth that we bought into. But all we ever really did was desegregate certain things.
I don't think that my generation is very connected to those struggles, and I don't really think that they know what those people were fighting for, what our parents were fighting for. I think if people think they fought for integration only, they've completely missed the mark. They were fighting for equal rights.
There is a mythos to a real integrated society. You know, we sort of do things on the surface here, and you know, so we break down segregation, but institutionally, it's very much still ingrained in us.
I've never had very high views of that, being let's all live together and get in a mess, because it never happened.
Black people like my parents found themselves caught between two worlds. If you weren't educated enough, you had little chance of surviving the white-dominated culture around you. If you were too educated, you risked alienating your own people who might perceive you as a traitor to your race and deny you the help you needed to succeed. And racial tension was so high during the Civil Rights era that few whites would risk helping a black person climb the ladder into the middle class. By the 1950s, the die was cast. Decades of entrenched, negative media depictions had taken their toll. People across the world began to view blacks in a light not much different from whites in the southern United States. We were all the same, no matter who we were or where we came from. And educated blacks were viewed simply as imitators of whiteness, not to be taken seriously.
And that's what racism does. It almost subconsciously identifies things that are positive that should have no color value as white. And so anybody who is not white, who wants to go to school, who wants to live comfortably in a different neighborhood, is all of a sudden asserting a desire to be white as opposed to a desire to be human, to have opportunity just as anyone else would.
People like my parents were not only escaping the horrors of the Jim Crow South, they were, like the original founders of Philadelphia, escaping a destiny that seemed predetermined simply by virtue of their birth. The story goes that John and Burdell met while on the train to visit family in Philadelphia. Burdell's family ties in the city were small, people with some education and modest wealth. John's family was huge, dotted across the city, but for the most part, desperately poor and living in the worst parts of Philadelphia. Within their own ethnic culture, my parents were two people who were almost as different from each other as they were from whites. John and Burdell faced that most American of dilemmas. They were from vastly different social circles and even had different ethnicities and religious beliefs. How then do you form a family, a community, a society with people with whom you have little in common? And then within that community, create a society that will benefit everyone. Most importantly, what do you tell your children about how to live with the strangers they are bound to encounter in their lives as American citizens?
So we've got a mingling that is unheard of in most societies, especially among whites. Quiet as it's kept, the Irish and the English didn't necessarily get along, or the French and the English. And now in America, we know that has morphed into this white identity where we don't even question, are you German? Are you Irish? Are you Italian? And does that mean something? But we attach meaning in a negative way with the heritage and the cultural upbringing and the history of people of color. That is the lie of racism. That's the rhetoric of racism, the way that we use these words and these identifiers.
I think that is the only way to go forward, because we are all human beings. But, it's not, this melting pot idea. Desegregation and integrating is not supposed to say, okay, well, let's all mix together and become the same people, because we are very different. We have our nuances. We have our histories, our, ethnic background, and by washing that away, you really devalue the people and the experience, versus saying, okay, we're all Americans. That is what we are, because we live in this country, but we're all different Americans, and that's okay. We don't have to be exactly the same to live with each other.
While there are some way overriding elements that connect us all as Americans, the difference between a Texan, a Californian, somebody from Iowa, somebody from New Jersey, somebody from Boston, are so different. And in some places, their connection to that local community is much deeper than their connection to being an American.
I think if we're all going to live in the same country, we definitely should integrate. But I think that there needs to be more of a dialogue, and there needs to be more honesty between each other about our history, where we've come from, how the country was founded, and a lot of the pain that comes with living in this country. I think if we don't talk about the pain behind it and the pain that people feel as a result of where we've come from, then we're never really truly going to be integrated, because nobody's really going to be honest about how they feel about a certain culture or ethnicity.
And that pain is practically a rite of passage for every person who calls themselves an American. The pain of being an outsider in a community of strangers. But the African American pain is the one that has been woven deeply into the fabric of this nation. Because the day one story of America was not the fight for freedom, but the struggle against Black slavery. And the way that struggle shaped our very idea of what it means to be an American, and even what it means to be a human being. milestone in Black accomplishment sets off a new battle over who will inherit the idea of America. The more we embrace America, and the more it embraces us, the greater the fight to discredit the American idea as a fraud, a mistake, a social experiment constantly teetering on the edge of destruction, destined to fail. Every tribe, every ethnic group, every political community in America wants the right to brag about their contribution to its growth, to voice their opinion about how it should evolve, to announce that their children are the ones who should inherit and design its future. But this nation's future is one that is inextricably tied to its past.
The documents and the ideals they articulated are brilliant. And the irony is that the descendants of the slaves they owned used those words and those ideas and ideals to then challenge this country to eliminate segregation, to use those words as a battle cry for freedom and rights. And every other oppressed group since then continues to use that language.
Hello, the Bali International AI Film Festival
is now open for submissions of any length and any genre. Check it out at biaiff.com.
Put up with this shit no more. Motherfuckers gotta start giving us some money and right now. Hey. This man out here on goddamn night. Hey, man. Hey. Come out with some change, man.
Hey, get away from that window. Man. I'm broke, I'm sorry.
I ain't got shit, man. Hey, excuse me. Hey, sir. Sir, you ain't going into that store coming out alive unless you give me $10. I need some motherfucking money right now.
Fuck you, get a job, man. We ain't doing this shit no more, man.
Government drained us alive, man. We ain't got shit left. Man, I don't even have a motherfucking tent over my head, man. Damn. Come on, give me some money. Hey, get over here. Hey, man. Give me a fucking dollar. Hey.
I'm broke, I'm sorry.
Y'all holding out on us.
We gotta stand out here all goddamn night, the motherfucking rain.
Come on, give me some money. Damn, man. Come on, man. $5 doesn't cover shit anymore. Man, I need $50 right now.
Damn! Yeah, I hear that, brother!
God damn, man. Help us out right now. Give me $20, motherfucker. Sorry. Motherfucking 10. I'm trying to steal one right now, motherfucker. I don't give a shit.
You better get your line on
He's a dancer. What? Don't make me go get my shotgun. Take care of y'all. Man, fuck your ass. You got a gun. Motherfucker. I'm gonna get my shotgun, man.
I'm sorry.
Fucking leave all this 7-Eleven. I'm silly now, man.
Give us some change!
Get the fuck out of my wall, man.
You ain't doing shit!
Get out of my fucking way, motherfucker!
The police come and do nothing. Every time. Are you kidding me? You're all on your own now. I thought Bangladesh was bad. This is 1,000 times worse. It is very bad. Very bad.
Can't you call the cops?
Police do nothing.
Oh my God.
They do nothing. It is crazy. Every day, we don't know if we live or die.
Dude, I need to get to my car.
No, sir, I am sorry.
Dude!
All we can do is pray to Shiva. Shiva will guide us. You see light of day tomorrow, you are lucky.
This is insane.
Hey, brother, I don't know what the hell's going on, man.
Hoping to find some more forgotten words.
You be playing the same motherfucking song all day long.
As if to say, hurry boy, it's waiting there for you. Gotta take a lot to drag me away from you. Thinking that I'm running man, I'm more could ever do. I bless the rain down in Africa. And it takes some time to do the rest of the night. Let's do what's right. Sure as Kilimanjaro rises like a Everest above the sand. What's deep inside, frightened of this thing that I've become. Gonna take the light to drag me away from you.
Stand by on 7979. Power up on 72. Power up on 72.
Directional array online, sir. Laser array 7 online. Laser array 9 online.
I can't believe we're finally doing this.
Stand by.
I want this place incinerated.
Okay, we're gonna fry this sucker.
Binary 4. 245. Heads up, boys.
Sherman 50, can we get a view into the house?
That's good. Deadline 0 Sherman 50. Can you try and look into the house?
You have all done well. All of you will be rewarded with military bonuses. As you know, money is everything. Money is power. Power is eternal.
It is my intention to live to the highest calling and be pressed to the mark of the highest calling that I have come to do. And when you can ask the Creator, ask that which made you you, what is your dream for me? If you're able to lean into the dream,
Burn the cities, burn the streets. Hear the humans' cries and shrieks. All stations freeze on. Burn the cities, burn the towns. Watch them crumble to the ground. See their flesh melt from their bones. This is how we take their homes. People scream and cry. This is how we make you die. Burn the cities, burn the farms.
set off all their false alarms. See the flames that dance and play. This is how we make you pay. See the buildings crumble down. This is how we take your town. Dreams grew up in flames. This is how we play our games. See the flames that dance and play. This is how we make you pay. The cities, burn the woods, destroy their precious livelihoods.
Good. Speaking of which, Phase 5 rolls out next quarter. Northern and South Carolina. DEW strikes on ex-urban growth zones and borderland forest.
Fires will surge along the Appalachian corridor. They'll start hitting the fringe zones first.
Good.
Property loss staged, media coordination pre-embedded, no anomalies projected.
We're doing good. The climate change narrative is still holding up.
So we'll deploy the geosync aerosol clouds that they fire.
Same model we used at Paradise and Maui. Rapid ignition, wind stroking, then localized containment.
Scrub it. Reposted with a
spiral by Wednesday.
CGI, you morons, and a thumbnail of Nick.
Just send him a bunch of contradictory YouTube videos and nobody will ask questions.
Showtime team, let's melt a few pine trees and pretend it's justice.
Sir, it looks like Toto escaped.
Good. Let them put on a rooftop performance. I want this to benefit climate change. And be sure Michael McDonald sings a duet.
All right, Sergeant, you heard him. Contract Toto to do a rooftop performance.
Yes, sir.
Let's go for it.
Come on, man, why not?
Let's do it. Come on, I'll be back in a second. Let's go for it.
Some